Hello and welcome to day 5 of the Floral Craft Countdown, where I'm showing you how to make 14 different Cricut floral paper craft projects in 14 days. Yesterday we made 3D slot together vases, so today we'd better make something to go in them. And just look at all of these gorgeous paper flowers. I'll turn them around a little bit so that you can see them easier. Now, if you're following along with a free ticket for the countdown, your project for today is this lovely 3D daisy. It looks gorgeous from the bottom as well as the top, and there's loads of depth and dimension in there. If you've purchased the Instant Access bundle, or if you've bought any of these designs separately in my shop at a later date, then you'll also get the other flowers, which is, let's have a little look here. We've got these lovely gerberas, a rose, a sunflower, oh, I've got too much going on here, a sunflower, and these lovely Christmassy poinsettias. They look really lovely in the vases from yesterday. It's a little hard to show them on camera. And here's one where I've just filled it with the gerberas in all different colours. So there's the vase, all those lovely flowers in it. And here's a little close-up of the rose. This one's my favourite, but it's kind of the trickiest one to make, which is why I'm leaving it until last. But there's the rose and a little vase showing all the different flowers, apart from the poinsettias, because they didn't really go with the other ones. There we go. All right, so first I will show you how to make the daisy, as that's the one that is today's free project, and then we'll go through each of the other ones. If you're looking for a specific flower, check the timestamps in the description of this video to jump straight to that particular flower. Let's get started. The files for this project are free for the next 24 hours. Here's how to download them. Register a free ticket for the Floral Craft Countdown at craftwithsarah.com/floral. After registering, you'll get an email which contains a link to the schedule page for the countdown. Visit the schedule page to find and download today's files. Each download is only available for free for 24 hours after it goes live. If you have missed some, check out the Instant Access bundle at craftwithsarah.com/floral bundle, which gives immediate and ongoing access to all of the files from the Floral Craft Countdown, plus loads of extra bonus designs. The download comes in a zip folder. You will need to unzip this before uploading the SVG files into Cricut Design Space. Not only is the daisy flower the easiest of the 5 to make, it's also the easiest to sort in Cricut Design Space because you don't actually have to do anything. Once you've loaded the SVG, it's ready to make as is. If you're not sure how to upload the SVG, check the Foundation Learning section of this countdown for a separate tutorial on how to upload SVGs into Cricut Design Space. You can see by clicking the little arrow in the Layers panel all the different pieces that make up this design. If you want to resize it, the easiest way to do that is to click on the whole group to select it and ungroup the layers by pressing the ungroup button. Then, with everything still selected, press align and then center. That's moved the little green pieces to behind the rest of the daisy now, but it means you can resize everything in one go and they'll all stay in proportion with each other, so everything will still fit. When you're ready to cut it out, simply click Make over on the top, and that will separate out the different colours. These flowers work best on a lighter type of cardstock rather than a really heavy one, so I would go a light to medium cardstock. If you use one that's really, really heavy, it can get hard, not so much on this one, but on the other flowers that all have score lines on them to help give it some dimension, it can get a little hard to make them. You can change the paper size in here, and you can move things about by clicking the 3 little dots and then move object, choose the same colour card and confirm. Because Design Space is thinking we're going to need 3 sheets for this daisy, and I am wondering if I can get it all on one. That might be a bit ambitious because that's the biggest one of all. So maybe not all on one at this particular size, but 2 is still better than 3. If there are any empty sheets left, when you click continue, it'll get rid of them. So go ahead, get everything looking how you want it to, cut it out, and then we'll see how to put together a 3D daisy flower. I've got everything ready to make a daisy flower, all my pieces cut out here, and I'll just show you the other tools I'm going to be using. To make the depth between the petals, I've used some little wooden beads. You can kind of just about see them if I pull the pieces apart, that little circle in there. Just the tiniest wooden bead to give it some depth, which makes it look more realistic. And you can't really see them when you're looking at the flower, but if you're worried about them, you could paint them the same colour as your flower to help them blend in more. An alternate way to do it would be to add a little tiny foam square in there around the wire instead of the bead, and that's what I'll do on some of the other flowers, but the beads is certainly the easiest way to do it because you can just thread them straight on. I do have some foam squares on the top of the flowers to help separate out the middles, again to give it some more depth and just make it look that little bit more special. You'll need some wire to attach your flowers onto, and this wire, it's kind of too hard to bend on its own, so it's fairly thick, it will stand up well, but you want something that you can still cut with wire cutters, so that, because obviously this is super long, you'll want to cut it shorter so that it will fit a bit nicer into your vase. So you can see that's the original on the left, and the right is the one I've cut shorter. So to do that, you'll need some wire cutters. I have this pair here. They're about £6 on Amazon. And you might also want some flat edge pliers to help bend the wire along the top of the flowers. But you might be able to do that if you're careful with your wire cutters instead, or just a regular pair of pliers. This was all I had and it worked, so I went with it. These are the beads that I'm using as my spacers, just tiny little wooden beads. I'll drop the links to all of these products in the written tutorial for this video if you want to get the exact same ones. To stop everything sliding down your wire once it's made, you can see on here it's got a slightly thicker bit just under that flower. And for that I've used some florist tape. This is the one I've used, and it comes in all different colours and shades of green so you can match it to your wire. It doesn't matter what thickness you choose because you can always cut it thinner if it's too thick. And this is just wrapped around underneath the flowers once we've made it, just to make sure your petals aren't going to go anywhere. And then I've got my pieces all cut out, so I'll move those out the way and we'll get started. The flower comes with 3 petal sections, 3 middles and 2 bases which go underneath. The flowers have all got little circles on so you know which ones to go in which order. The bottom one is the one that's got the 3 holes in a row. Then on top of that you've got the one with 2 holes, and then the very top one is the one with 1 hole. If you're using the bead version, the petals and flowers can still kind of move around, so they won't end up perfectly aligned all the time. If you want them to be perfectly aligned so that the cutouts perfectly go on top of each other, then you'll need to use the foam square method that I'm about to show you. I didn't actually show you any of my foam squares at the start, so here we go. But if you watched any of my other videos, you will have seen them in those because I use them all the time. Alright, so let's start by fluffing up our petals a little bit. So I'm just going to roughly go around, and I'm not folding it, you don't want to add any creases in, but I'm just putting a little bit of a bend into these petals to help them look that little bit more realistic than just having them flat. So you see it's quite subtle, but it will definitely make a difference when it's put together. So I'll do this on all of them. Lovely. Then you can take your wire and you can either thread everything on first and then bend the top over at the end, or you can bend the top first and then put everything on from the bottom. By bend the top, I mean that we're just going to give it the tiniest little bend back on itself, a bit like a horseshoe shape. And that's going to keep everything on it on the end. I'm not very good at this. I am terrible at small fiddly things that involve any sort of tool like pliers. So I'm sure you'll do this in a much better and easier way than I'm doing it. But there we go. I've just folded that back over to make a little hook. And then I can thread everything on from the bottom. So because I've done it this way, I'm working petals first, starting with the top one. So I can put that on and it goes through the little kind of star-shaped hole all the way to the end. Then the next one, the one with 2 holes on it. Oh, no, I've forgotten my bead. Making mistakes already. Okay, gonna add my bead next. If you're using the beads, if you're using the foam square method, then you can stick your foam squares. You probably would need at least 2, one either side of your wire. Put them on here and then they'll stick to the next bit when it goes on. I'll do a bead on the end and then all the way down. Then the second one. And then another bead. If I can find my way into the bag. Let's take a couple out. There, and I'm pushing it all the way up to the top. It's not going to come off the end because we've done that. Okay, now I'm not worrying too much about lining up my holes because they're going to move about anyway with the bead method. If you're using the foam square method, you probably would want to make sure they're all roughly in the same place. And then next is this green bit. All the way up. This one doesn't need a bead. And then the little green circle, which is going to hide all those other cutout circles on the other pieces. All the way up there. So that's the petals all done. Now we can add a little bit of glue and a little bit of the tape. Now the tape does kind of stick to itself and the wire. If you get it a little bit wet, it does tend to get a bit sticky, so you might not need glue. It depends very much on the type of tape you're using. So I'm going to kind of stretch it out a bit, and that seems, oh, too much, I snapped it. That makes it go sticky as well. I'm not really sure how this works. As you might be able to tell, I am very much not a florist, so we'll see if it will stick together without any glue. I'm just wrapping it around quite tight because we want it to stick to the wire and also to itself. I don't think that's quite working, so I will add a little bit of glue. Use your glue very sparingly. Try not to get any on the flower. No, that little piece is actually probably better. And there, it's really subtle, but now that is not going anywhere. Okay. I folded mine over here a little bit too aggressively, so I'm just going to snip it a little smaller and try again because I've just realised that my top bits aren't quite going to cover that. If you had folded that over neatly, then you could stick this one on using some foam squares around the side to bring it up to the same height as your wire. And then stick that one on there and then use foam squares to do the other two as well. I'm just going to snip my wire a bit shorter so it's easier to keep this in the camera shot. Much easier. Right. Oh, I can't push that up yet because I haven't sealed it. Okay, I'm just going to wait for my glue gun to get hot and then we can finish this off. Right, my glue gun is hot, so I'm going to use it to go around the wire here and then stick my biggest part of the middle on the top. I had wanted to do this without a glue gun, but didn't manage it. Bend that down. And then that hides the wire, you can't see it at all. And then for the other two bits, let's just switch that glue gun off. I'll just grab one of my foam squares and put that right in the middle, just there. And add the next sized one, like that. And then the next one on top. And there we go. So I'm not sure why it always goes to plan in the test runs, and when I come to actually filming it, I have problems, but I guess it's good because it means you can learn from my mistakes along the way. So here's my new daisy, and here are some of the other ones. Let's put that in. With all of these, this is just a florist foam block. The green goes everywhere. That means I can put them in all beautiful to show you. So this was the flower that was free if you're following along with the Floral Craft Countdown on a free ticket. But if you purchase the Instant Access bundle or if you've bought any of my other flower files along the way, then the next section of this video will be on how to do those, starting with the Gerbera daisy. This is what the Gerbera file looks like when it's loaded into Design Space. It does load in fairly small at only 3.5 inches wide, so you might want to make it bigger to make it a little bit more dramatic when you display it. If you want to resize it, you can do the same as we did before. So ungroup everything, select all and center, and then resize it. Or if you're only worried about the width, you can just do it like this. There are a few things we need to do on this flower. The first is to change all of these lines in the petals to score lines. To do that, open up the layers and then ungroup them by pressing the ungroup button at the top of the layers panel. Then you'll see there are 4 different layers in here which are all mini groups. These contain the pink of the daisy and then the score lines, which we need to turn into score lines. At the moment it's a basic cut because Design Space doesn't understand what we want to be score lines unless we explicitly tell it. If you don't have a scoring tool for your Cricut, you can delete these score layers by clicking on them and pressing the trash can icon at the top. You'll still be able to make the flowers, they'll just be a little bit harder to fluff up the petals. But if you do have one, a scoring tool, then click on the layer, so just the one single layer that's going to be those score lines. Then under Operation, change it to Score. Click on the little mini group that line belongs to and press Attach. Attach is what tells the Cricut where to do the scoring. That will move it to the top of the layers panel, so we can go Arrange, Center Back to put it back on the bottom, then move on to the next one. Once again, just click that one layer, which is going to be the score line. Change it to Score. It looks a little bit weird because it's going to make it look dashed, but it will score as a solid line. Click the mini group again and press Attach. And then I'm going to put that back down to where it goes. I have a bit of a problem when I'm dragging and dropping things in Design Space, and I always manage to get it inside another folder, which is what I just did. So I'm just trying to correct that. All right, so I've attached it again. Rather than doing that, I'm going to go Arrange, Center Back, and then Arrange, Bring Forward to move it above the very bottom one. I don't know why I find it so difficult to drag and drop in Design Space with the Layers panel, but I definitely do. All right, I'm doing the same for this third one. And let's put it back into place there. And then this one is the last one. change that to score, attach it, and send back, and then move forward above the other ones back to its original position. Alright, so this would now be ready to cut. I'm going to make it a little smaller because that's currently 6 inches wide. Let's go for more like 5. You can also change the colours of these because gerbils come in so many beautiful colours. For example, we could do a yellow and orange one instead of pink. So I'm going to look on these layers again, click on just the pink one, change it to a nice bright orange. Do that to all of them. And then orange gerbils tend to have a little bit more of a kind of lighter middle to them. So these ones I'll make kind of a lighter orange, and then they go dark again. So the next two, let's go for an even darker orange. And then the middle bit, that is kind of a dark, almost black, more browny than grey. Like that. So very quickly we've completely changed the look of that flower, and what I am going to do is to cut loads in lots of different colours so that I can show you them all. But when you're happy with how it's looking, press make and then just follow all the steps to get everything cut out, just like you did with the daisy flower. Here are my gerberas, my little test ones, and I love these because there are so many different colours that you can make. Take one out to show you in a little more detail. So these ones I've stuck together with the foam square method rather than the beads. Zoom in a little bit. Here we go. This is what it looks like from the top and the side. This one has a bit more to it in terms of the petals that bend. So I tried it with the beads that we used for the daisies and it was just a little too much. It made it look a little unrealistic. So I stuck with the foam squares for this one as it just gives a bit of depth between them without there being too much. And then all of these bits on top are glued together apart from the middle, which is stuck on with another foam square. And this time, rather than using the tape as a little protector to stop it sliding down, I've actually glue gunned just the other side of this green to the wire, which you could absolutely do on the daisies too. I sort of thought of that afterwards. It's a bit more of an elegant solution. Although, of course, if you're not great with a glue gun, then the tape version might be better. All right. So here are my pieces for this one. This is just a pure pink one I'll be doing. All different bits of pink. My hands are covered in bits of green from that florist foam. And then the back of these have 3 bits of green. There's my very middle for the top. So we've got 4 layers this time. And they've all got a score line down them on the petals. You probably can't see, but there's one on each side of each petal. And for these, we're just going to gently bend upwards. So you're sort of pushing each side of the petal in along those score lines. It doesn't have to be neat. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just giving it a little bit of a bend so that each petal kind of curls in from the side, giving it that more realistic appearance. And this is fairly time consuming, especially if you've made as many as we did for the test ones. My team and I had a full day of flower making to create all of the demos, but it's definitely worth doing it because it adds so much more realism to the flowers than if you had just left them kind of flat. These ones still take less time than the sunflowers though. You'll see that when we come to it a little bit later. So you see, I'm not worrying about being too neat along those score lines, just kind of pushing them in, getting that bend. So I'm going to pause this video and go ahead and do that for my other 3 pieces, and then we'll put it all together onto the wire. All right, all my petals are folded and I've already tucked over my wire. I realised what I did wrong in the daisy step. I tucked it all the way round to make a horseshoe shape when actually it should have just come over kind of 90 degrees like that. When we made all the test runs, I was not on wire bending duty. I think everyone in my team knew that I'd be terrible at that. I was on petal folding duty. So yes, that was my mistake. It should have just gone over like that. So now I can thread the flowers on, starting with the one that's got the one big hole and one little hole. All the way down, and it won't go over the top because of that bend. Oh, it would help if I showed that on the actual camera. And then for this one, I've got my foam squares. And they do end up quite well hidden, but smaller ones are best. I'll put that right up to the wire. This also has the added benefit of holding it to the wire a little bit. One each side. There we go. Peeling the tops off is a little tricky. There we go. And then I can take the next one, the one with the two holes, put that on. And this time, for this one, I will line up those holes because it will stick to the foam squares, just roughly, not, you know, not doing it 100%, but that's pretty well done. And then stick them on. So there's a little gap between them, enough to make it really obvious that you've got layers of petals, but not as much as there was with the beads. And then the same again. I can't peel the tops of these foam squares. There we go. Third one. More foam squares, and then the fourth one. There. Then I can add my green bits, starting with the largest one. And for this one, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of glue gun around the wire, like that. So this will hold everything in place straight away. Mind your fingers, because it's hot. Push that down so it sticks. You could do this for the petals too and glue gun it rather than the foam squares, but we did find that you didn't get quite as much dimension doing it that way as you do from the foam. And then for the green bits, it doesn't really matter. This is more just to hide all the holes and make them look a little bit nicer on the backs. So either way on this one, there are 3 green bits in total. I'm doing the glue gun as it's a little quicker. Right, turn it over and then we can start doing the top. I'll cut my wire a bit shorter so I can actually hold it up. There we go. Okay. So I probably should have made sure it was all right to the top before I glued the base bit on. I hadn't quite pushed it all the way up. But that's okay. I'll just do what I did before and snip off my top and use glue gun to hold it in place. So I'll glue gun around all of that. You could use a foam square if your wire kind of allows it. And then just quickly, I should have done this first, rough up the edges of my middle. And stick that into the glue gun. This one will look a bit different because it's all one colour, as opposed to something like that where the middle is different. There are just so many different types of these flowers. Some of them are all one colour, some of them are several different shades, some of them are even different, 2 different colours. So there is so many different things to do. And then for the other bits, let's fluff up these edges first. Just a little bit just so they're not completely flat. And then for these, they will be glued together, but you don't necessarily have to use a glue gun. You could use your regular craft glue. Just bear in mind that might take a little bit longer to dry. A little bit in the middle. Add the next size. And again. Next size. And one more. Lovely. Then for the very, very middle bit, I want that to have a little bit of pop. So back 2 more foam squares. Just one teeny tiny one in the middle. And there we go. Gerbera. All done. Looking lovely from every single angle. And I can add it to the collection. Got a whole little garden going on here. I'm getting into the swing of this a little bit now, so let's move on to the poinsettia. Here's what the poinsettia flower looks like when it's loaded into Design Space. This one, all the layers come in position, so you can just resize it as and when you want to. There are a few lines on here we need to change to score to add all of the veins to the green and the red. To do that, first let's ungroup the layers by pressing the ungroup button at the top, and then the ones that are going to have score lines, you can tell because they've all got this little arrow next to them in the layers panel. I'll start with the top one, look in here, and this consists now of 2 layers. We've got the red and then a black layer on the top, and it's that black layer we want to change to score. So click on just the black layer, then under Operation, change it to score. It will look really weird on screen now because when you set something to score, Design Space shows it as a dashed line instead of solid. However, don't worry because when you actually do the scoring, it will still be solid lines and it will look right. It will just look a little bit weird on your computer screen, so just bear with it. Click the mini group again. So now we've got the black layer and the red layer underneath selected, and then press attach. Attach is what tells the Cricut to do the scoring on that piece. Okay, then I'm going to put it back in position because when you attach it moves it to the top of the layers panel. So I'm going to go arrange, center back. Oh, wrong one. I meant send backwards. Send backwards, which I'm pressing twice to put that back where it needs to go. Now the next one, do the same thing. Click on the black layer, change it to score. Select both of them, so the black and the red, and press attach. And then I'm going to move it back. You can drag and drop it in the layers panel, but I have a little bit of a problem whenever I try to do that, and I always end up dropping it inside another group, and that's not what I want to do. So I go the long-winded way with the arrange send backwards instead. There's one more red one to do this on, so change that to score, attach it, and then send backward until it's back in its original position. You don't actually have to do this if you're not worried about it looking right on the screen. You could just leave them wherever they end up attached, but I like seeing it all in the right position before I get ready to cut it out. I'm now moving on to the top green layer. Again, this has got a dark green and a black. It's a little bit hard to see because they're close in colour. But again, the black one, change to score, attach, and now it's probably quicker to go centre back and then bring forward a couple of times to put that in position. One more to go for the very bottom green leaves. So change to score, attach, and then move it back into position. Then if you want to resize it, drag a box around everything and group it again. Then you can change everything in proportion. Here are my beautiful poinsettia flowers, and I've put them into a custom Christmas-themed vase using yesterday's project from the countdown. These look really lovely displayed all together as one. You can see they just all completely come out. For these ones, for the spaces within the flowers, I've gone back to using the beads like I did for the white daisy, because if you look at these in real life, there is quite a lot of depth between each of the layers, so the beads give you that more than the foam squares do. I left mine in the colour they came, but they probably would look better painted red, or even drawn in red with a felt tip or a Sharpie or even a Cricut pen, just to make them the same colour as the cardstock. So here are all my pieces, and for the red ones, we're just going to fold up gently, a bend more than a fold, along the middle score line. Now, I kind of made a mistake on these and cut them from textured paper, which means the poor Cricut spent ages doing all the scoring of all the veins, and you can't see them. You can see them a little bit. If I tilt it that way, you can sort of see it, but they don't really show up. So that would have been better on a non-textured cardstock. It took ages as well. So we're just doing that to give it the bend, and I've done the same on those two. And exactly the same for the green bits as well. We want to just go upwards, down the middle, give it a little bit of realism. This is a super thick card. Should we see if I manage to get my wire hook the right way around this time without having to go rogue at the end and snip it off? Here's my wire. I've bent the end over. So we can start with the first one, which is the smallest red. I'm going to put that all the way down till it gets to the hook. And then add a bead. All the way down there. Then the next size of red. Roughly line up those circles, but it will move about a bit. Another bead. There we go. Then the final red. And we'll stick with the beads. I need to grab a few more from my pack. Stick with the beads for the green. So one more. Then you've got the green with the oval and then the one circle. Where do those foam squares come from? And that one. And then the next one. That one's cut. And then that's kind of positioned so that the leaves go in the gaps of the one below. Now this time, let's push it all down, make sure it's right at the end, which it definitely is this time. Twist that round a little. And then glue gun, and then we'll add the circle. So the glue should touch the wire. We're using this to make sure that the flower doesn't fall down the stem. There we go, all the way around. Snip a bit off of that. That went somewhere. And then my top bit actually looks like I've done it right this time. This is how it should be. So it's sort of flat against the top of the flower. Woohoo! Okay, so now you could use your regular craft glue. I'm going to glue gun it, and I've got my biggest middle section. I'll just play about with those a little. Cover that over. Stick on top. That is very hot. And then the same on this one. Oh, this one's gone way more smoothly than the others. Finding my groove. There. Poinsettia flower. All done. Next, we will move on to the sunflower. This is what the sunflower looks like when it loads into Cricut Design Space. Once again, just like with the previous couple of flowers, we've got some lines we need to change to score so that the Cricut will score them on some of these leaves. So I'll click on the whole thing and press ungroup to separate the layers. And then you can see you've got 4 yellow bits in here. These all have a little arrow next to them, which signifies that we're going to have some lines in there to change to score. So let's do this one first. We've got a yellow and then the black. If you don't have a scoring tool or stylus, you can click these black layers and delete them by pressing the trash can icon. You don't have to do it, it just makes it a little bit easier to give the petals some dimension. So I've got this black layer selected. Under operation, I'll choose score, and that will change it to a dashed line on the screen, but don't worry, it will still score it as a solid. Click on those 2 layers and attach. Attach is what tells the Cricut where to do the scoring. And then you can move that back into position. Do the same on the next one. So, I'm going to change that to score. Click it to select both of them and attach. Now I have trouble dragging and dropping folders in between other folders, so I'm going to go a bit long-winded and go arrange, center back, and then arrange, bring forward twice for it to then appear in the correct place. And then I'll do the same on these 2. So my black one is changing to score. Click to select both and attach. And then I'll put it back where it's supposed to go. Then the very bottom one, select the black layer, change it to score, attach, and this time I can just go arrange, center back. If you want to resize it, a nice easy way to do that is just to move all of your green bits on top of the yellow, or you can select everything and go align center to put it all on top of itself, and then when you regroup it, you can resize everything and it will stay all sized in proportion, so you know that everything's going to cut out and still all fit together really nicely. It's time to get things super cheerful with these bright yellow sunflowers. They look so lovely all together, and there are loads of layers in this to make them really dimensional. For this one, I'm also going to use beads for the layers rather than the foam squares, just so that there is loads of space between them, which makes them look a little more realistic. I've already bent up all of the petals, so what I did was I just gently pushed along those score lines that are in the middle of each petal, just to give them a little bit of bounce. Be careful on the ones that are thin, because they're a little bit delicate where they meet the middle circle, but they all come up lovely. I'm just going to rearrange these so that they're in the right order. There we go. I folded over my wire so I can start threading these on, I still put them in the wrong order, starting with the one with one big hole and one little hole, all the way down to the end. Then a bead, then the one with 2 holes and 1 big hole. I'll roughly line them up. As with the other flowers, you could stick these together with foam squares or your glue gun rather than doing it this way. But I think this way looks the nicest when it's all finished with that extra dimension. We tried out a few different ways and went with this one in the end. Number 3, another bead, and then the last one. There are 3 different pieces of green in 3 slightly different sizes. Actually, those 2 kind of look the same size. Maybe that means I messed up one of the other ones I showed you a minute ago and they've got 2 that are the same. Anyway, take whichever one is the biggest and just rough up those edges just a little. And then make sure that's all pushed down. Little bit of glue gun. Need a new glue gun stick. There. Don't give me a string. Put that on there. For the next one, I'll add another bead. Fluff those edges a little. And put on. And the last one, another bit of glue gun, which is what's going to keep it in position. Should have fluffed those edges first. I'm just going to grab another glue stick, a little bit to go in there, then I'll be back. Here's the top of the sunflower, and for the first bit, which is one of these ones, just going to fluff this up. And also the next one. I'm looking at the ones that are already made, and some of them appear to have 3 of these spiky bits. I've only got 2, so maybe I've lost one somewhere along the way. So these 2 are the same size, and the ones on the other ones are different sizes. So I think I've made a little mess up somewhere along the way, but I'm sure it'll still be fine. Okay, for the very first one, I'll add some foam squares, give it a little bit of pop and help it come out around that wire. I'm getting the hang of this wire now. This is quite a big piece, so I'm going to go with 4 foam squares. And there we go. And then a bit of glue gun for the next one. My glue gun's at that annoying point where the next glue bit can't fit in yet, but it's not quite strong enough to pull it through. That one on there. Right, I'm giving up on my glue gun for the next bit just because I am going to have to try and work out how to do that because it's a little bit stuck. So instead, I'll switch to my regular craft glue for the next bits. There's glue. And yeah, those 2 spiky bits of orange definitely weren't supposed to be the same size. Probably means one of the other ones I showed you at the beginning of this segment is wrong. And there's my brown. And then this one will work best with craft glue anyway, rather than a glue gun, as it's very small. And that goes right on top, like all of the seeds of the sunflower showing through. Ah, beautiful. There's my gorgeous yellow sunflower done, which means there's only 1 flower left, and I've left this one to last because it is kind of the trickiest one, but now it's time for the rose. This is how the rose loads into Cricut Design Space. Now it might look like you've only got 2 little pieces of the rose, but when you open up the layers by clicking the arrow, you can see there's actually lots of them. They're just all sat on top of themselves, so you can't really see them on the screen. There are some lines on the leaves which will change to a score line. You can delete the score lines if you don't have a scoring tool. To do that, first we'll click the whole thing and then ungroup by pressing the ungroup button at the top of the layers panel. And then look in here, and within these 2 mini groups, one for each of the leaves, you've got a bottom layer which is the green and a top one, and this is what will change to score. Click the trash can if you don't have a scoring wheel or stylus. Under operation, change it to score if you do have one. Don't worry that it now looks really weird on the screen. It's because score lines show as dashed lines in Cricut Design Space, but it will still score them as a solid line. Click to select that mini group, so now I've got my green and my black layer selected, and press attach. And then I'll do the same for the other one. Click that black layer, change it to score, click the mini group, and press attach. And that's all you would have to do for this one. If you want to resize this to fit a specific size rose, select everything again and group it. And then you can just resize it by doing this, but it's going to go to the size of that biggest leaf on your width. To change the size, an easier way to do it is to find a circle, make that the size that you want to make it overall. Perhaps we'll go 5 inches, and then arrange centre back, and then you can kind of drag this so it sort of fits inside that circle. Now bear in mind when we put this together it will be curled up a little bit, so it won't be exactly 5 inches, it will probably end up a little bit smaller, but it's a good guide to get something fairly similar to what you're looking for. So go ahead, get this looking how you want it to, cut it out, and then we will see how to put it all together. For our final flower, we're on to making roses. Look how gorgeous these are. These ones definitely need a glue gun to be able to make them, so that all of the glue dries really quickly and really firmly, holding all the little rolls in place. If you have finger protectors against the glue gun, I recommend that. I don't, and I've just put 2 together to practice, and let's just say some of my fingers know about it. Alright, so there's just a little few of those. The pink one is my favourite. These ones come with leaves as well to go on the wire. Here's my wire. I've bent it just like with all the other ones. And for my rose, these petals all have the little circles in, like I've been showing with all the other flowers. The ones that you get won't have those circles cut out because you don't actually need them for the rose, and it makes it more difficult because the glue gun comes out of the holes and puts it in prime finger burning finger burning position. That's what I was going for. So yes, you'll have all of these, but without the circles in, and it doesn't matter which way round you put them. And choose one to start with, and we'll start by working on the middle of the flower. Find something, if you can, that's a little bit spherical to roll the petals around. I'm using a Cricut pen here, and just roll them around and then let go, so it gives them that nice little bend. You'll be a little bit fed up of doing this by the end of the flower. There we go. And then, as this is the middle one, gather them all up just to kind of start getting that paper used to being rolled up tight. And then let go. So we're going to thread this on, pull it all the way to the top. And then we'll start sticking. So get your glue gun on. Mine is. And then to start, I'm going to go down the sides of one of the petals. Doesn't matter which one you choose. And just kind of roll it round. Oh, that just fell off. Okay, I'll do that in a minute. Roll it round on itself. And stick that petal to itself. So you've made a kind of oval. Like that. Let's put that on again. What am I doing? The next petal will kind of wrap around that first one. And I'll also add a bit of glue in the middle to try and get it to stick to that wire. So we want that to go nice and in the middle and wrap that around. And then we'll keep wrapping round and gluing each time quite tightly. I'm just showing you by putting the petals into position, but you'll glue them so that they wrap around like this and form a tight spiral. And then make sure as you're doing it, it ends up quite upright and level with the wire, how you want it to display when it's all finished. So I'm going to go ahead and start sticking these. Put my glue on either side of that second petal. And now I'm bringing up the one from one side. Stick it on either side. It looks almost like a wafer roll at this point. There. And then the next one can be a little bit looser. So for this one, I'll add my glue kind of down the bottom. How tight you do this depends on how tightly you want the middle of your rose, and also the size of it. The two I've just done to practice with were much smaller than this one because I thought this one would be easier to show you with it being a bit bigger. But actually, I kind of think the smaller ones were a little bit easier to do. Okay, so next I'm going to do the one on the other side. Just go with what feels natural. It will depend on where you're sticking it as to which ones sort of naturally fit next. So for this one, I'll add a little bit of glue on this and a little bit of glue on the other side. This is so hard to show on camera. I want a little bit on there. And a little bit on my other outer petal, which is there. Ooh, just put my finger in the glue. If you do that, rub, 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 get it off. And then my last one, I'm going to wrap again, so it's kind of just touching either side. Okay, so now they're all on there, but this is a little bit not very well stuck to my wire. The next bit will help. So take the next piece and we're going to roll up the sides again. And then tuck my wire through a bit more because it's come out a bit. Glue that onto the wire. Hold it upright. Just wait for that to dry. Although actually we could probably stick that to the back of it. So I want that upright. Next one on. Get that middle stuck. So you can see now why I filled in the holes for the ones you get, because all the glue's going to come through them. Now we're going to start gluing the petals one at a time again. And this time we're just kind of going to glue along the bottom, but still working one at a time. You'll have to probably keep pulling the middle bit upright because it's going to want to try and lean to one side. But we want it standing upright. So the next one will wrap around. And that's going to need to touch a little bit on this petal and a little bit on the one that's already there. We're still very much doing the kind of wraparound effect. This would be easier if I wasn't left-handed. My glue has to be over on the left because that's where the power supply is. But I want to hold it in my left hand. So that one's going to come up. Hold it down. Touch both of those. Wait for the glue to dry. And then I'm going to keep doing that for the next couple. Putting them tight in. One on the one you've just done. And then one on what would kind of be the next one along. Hold it upright. And wrap around. They're going to start naturally getting a little bit looser as we go. You can see there's my spiral so far. And the next one. That's still got two to stick to. This one. I was forgetting which one I was doing then. If you find that it doesn't quite reach that other one, so that one, it doesn't quite go, I'm going to move that petal up onto the glue. So you can skip a petal and come back to it later if that's how it naturally fits. If that's what's going to be easier and it'll end up looking better. Don't try and force them somewhere they don't want to go. And then this one will fit nicely there. So that's the first two shapes done. Move on to the next one. Roll up the petals against your pen. There we go. Turn it over. Make sure it's nice and straight and flat where you want it to go. And add a little bit of glue around the wire. Don't know why my glue has suddenly decided it does not want to come out. Pull that down and stick. See, I'm wiggling it around a bit until it sticks, just because I want to try and keep that rose straight upwards. There. Okay, so now we're going to start going a little bit looser still. First petal, look for where your outer one is from the last one. Go just down there at the bottom. And I'm actually going to go for that one because the one next to it was a bit too similar. Pull that up. And the next one. I think I'll actually go this one, so I'm going to skip one this time. That just seems to fit better with what's there. Sometimes you've just got to base it on what you've got to stick to. Now I can do this one. I'm going to squidge it in. Glue a little bit on this petal and a little bit on that one. Okay, 3 left. Go that one next, I think. And then 2 more. Here's our rose now. Definitely starting to look rose-like. And now I'm going to start doing something a little different with the petals. So this time I'll roll one around just like we've always been doing. Then the next one along, I'm going to roll kind of backwards over the pen like that. Then go back to the original. Then backwards over the pen. The same way we've always done it. The next one backwards over the pen. So we've got alternating petals now. And then glue this one on. Keep that wire straight. And now we can start kind of gluing it just along the bottoms. And because we've tilted some of those a different way with the folds, it's going to start giving us different effects. And this is how the outer layers of the rose begin to build. So again, it does not matter which ones you do, in which order. Just go with what feels right to you as you're doing it. If you feel some of them are too tight, then you can bend them a different way to get them a bit looser. Or if some of them you feel are getting a bit too loose, pull them tighter against the rest of the rose when you're gluing them. It's looking good. Still 3 more to go. Now I'm just going to do exactly the same for each of those 3. So I'll show it to you once more, and then I'll probably pause the video for the other 2 and go ahead and do them. I'm still bending those petals the same way, so one upwards around the pen, and then the next one I'm rolling kind of over the top. There we go. Although saying I'm going to pause it, actually I probably won't. So on this one, I'm sort of putting some of my glue on the side of around 2 or 3 petals, going down them. so that we can stick this straight away. So it's going to go down, and then watch your fingers and hold it upwards into where you've put the glue. So you can do 3 in one go now. This only works now because they don't need to be quite as tight up against it. So we can get multiple stuck in one go. Just make sure you hold it till they're all nicely on there. And then I'll do the other 3 in one go too. So just get your glue gun, go down as far as you can. If you need to move the new petals out the way, just gently fold them backwards. And those 3 all in one go. Start playing about with these, opening some up, making it look a little more realistic, but we'll do this properly at the end when everything's stuck. Okay, we can do the same thing again once I've done the folding. So one that way, one that way. And then glue. Oh, come on, glue gun, this is really annoying. Along there and down about 3 of the sides. Angle it round so your petals don't line up exactly with the ones you've just done. We want a nice bit of variation. And hold those in place. And then for the other ones, oh, I've got 4 that haven't stuck. Bit of glue down the bottom in there. And we can fold them all up in one go. That one still hasn't stuck. Here is it so far, only one to go. Glue around the base and down some of those sides. Let's go for 3 again. There we go. Gorgeous rose. Some of these are going to need a little bit of attention. Bend them gently, roll them in some different ways. Just adding that realism and making it so that the petals aren't exactly stacked one on top of the other. Gorgeous. All right, time for the base. Take the big little kind of star shape one, give it a wiggle to bend them upwards a bit, and then glue onto the bottom. Put that one on there. This will be so much easier for you when you won't have holes in all the pieces. My poor fingers. Then the final bit is the circle. Just plain little circle. Finish it off. Lovely rose. We've got the leaves to finish it off. Fold them in half. And then grab your glue gun. I'm going to put a bit down the leaf. Quite a bit along that crease. I know it's thin. That's what's going to hold it to the wire. And then choose where you want it to go. Careful with your fingers. Pull it tight, not so tight it rips the card. But I'm going to squidge that onto the wire. If it misses, doesn't quite hold on, just add a little bit more glue either above or below and then drag the leaf down into that glue to hold it in place. And then the other one goes in the other direction. like that. There's my rose to add to all my other ones. I can breathe now. Most complicated one finished. I hope you enjoyed this rather long video on how to make 3D paper flowers with your Cricut machine. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and come back tomorrow for day 6 of the Floral Craft Countdown. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!